Welcome, everyone. This is Dr. Clark, the Center for Weight Loss Success. Today on Losing Weight USA, we're going to talk a little bit about some triggers to overeating and also what can you do about those things too. They're very common triggers. Many triggers to overeating tend to be somewhat emotional, stress related, but we'll talk about these things. All right, so welcome to Losing Weight USA, real-time answers to your weight loss questions, some of the latest updates and research, also a little bit of expert advice. Gives you direct access not only to me, but you should be receiving the health tips and recipes via the membership portal. And I do encourage you, get into the membership portal, keep adding more and more things in there. All these webinars, all the classes, it's all in there. All right, if you have questions during this presentation, just type them into the chat box as we go along. We'll get to them at the end. If you think of things once we're all done, just give us a yell here at the Center for Weight Loss Success. The email is success@cfwls.com. Phone number 757-873-1880. All right, so again, we're talking about kind of triggers to overeating, kind of what we can potentially do about it. All right, let me get this screen share up and going. Here we go. All right, so overeating. Basically, it's kind of just, the definition is basically eating more than what you planned, okay? Or eating more than what's on your diet, okay? And kind of you can also consider that if you're kind of eating, here's my meal, and I actually kind of full or satisfied kind of before I've finished eating, but we kind of force our way through, push our way through, and we continue, and we finish it anyway. That's also overeating, which is different. Overeating is different than binge eating. And binge eating basically is an extreme form of overeating. And it's eating in an abnormally large amount. Or kind of if you've had surgery or so and you can't eat huge amounts, it's just that feeling that I'm out of control with your eating. So that is also binge eating. Binge eating is not, it's again an extreme form of overeating, but it's also something that needs to be evaluated by a mental health professional, because this is something that needs to be treated. Okay, so we just realize binge eating is different than just overeating, and probably the biggest qualifier on making it binge eating is just feeling out of control with the eating. It's that sensation of, gee, I'm out of control with the eating. It may not have to do with the total volume itself. All right, but a lot of times, getting back to the overeating side of the whole thing, sometimes we can justify our overeating. Now, justifying doesn't mean it's actually the right thing to do, but we often justify it to ourselves. Okay? And this can happen as, if we're eating out and we've paid for it, so gee, we're going to finish them. If we're doing, involve celebrations, if we're on vacation, someone may be urging us to eat, have a little bit more, maybe Aunt Sally, maybe whoever. Okay, someone is urging you to eat, or if there's a large one and it's free, kind of help yourself. And then also that mental thinking or that thought pattern of, geez, since I've strayed off my eating or my diet plan, I might as well kind of just continue on eating. So we sometimes justify this overeating. And it's not that those aren't legitimate or real things that I just mentioned. It's just that realize that's what it is. It's a justification. All right, now they're really, from talking about an overeating aspect, there are really probably hundreds of causes, but they tend to fall into different categories. And some of these common causes, and one of the most common ones, is just stress related. So stress eating, very, very common. Stress from all kinds of different things, changes in life, whatever. Or kind of little irritation, we're frustrated with something, it's just kind of turned in, it's a habit that we've done. Another big one is boredom. We often eat because we're bored. Or if we're overworked, which falls into the stress thing, or if we're worrying, which falls into the stress thing. And so we're going to go over about 10 different common, what I call triggers to overeating. I've talked about this is a little different than what I often refer to as trigger foods. Trigger foods is, gee, if I have one Lay's potato chip, I'm going to eat the whole thing. Okay, if I have one M&M, I'm going to eat the whole great big bag of them. So those are kind of more food triggers that, gee, I can't just eat a little bit of them. And those kind of food triggers need to be avoided. So now what we're really talking more about is these are common lifestyle triggers, not actually a food trigger for overeating, and talk a little bit about, well, okay, what can you do about these things? All right, so again, going into the common triggers for overeating, boredom is one of the biggest ones. This happens to everybody. Okay? It typically leads to kind of, gee, I'm, sitting on my screen time, my TV, my phone, my computer screen, and it tends to be kind of video watching, doing something kind of mindless in there, and we see all these different food commercials, and it may lead you then to walk into the pantry, I gotta get something. Part of this, because of this boredom kind of eating, kind of watching, and this is easier to do nowadays than 5, 10 years ago, is watching commercial-free TV, streaming services. If we're going to be doing that, we know we're going to be doing that. It's like, okay, have those healthy snacks already prepared. If this is one of those things, try to, another thing is just trying to change that mentality. Gee, when I'm sitting down and watching these things that I need to eat. It's like, well, no, you don't. Okay. Again, that goes back to that eating times, things along those lines. But if you are going to eat, try to make them a healthy eating pattern there. All right, second kind of trigger is just feeling deprived. And some of it is because, gee, this isn't, this food that I may love isn't really on my diet. Okay, and I'm not a big fan of deprivation diets, meaning that, oh, you can never have this. Now, for many people, again, we talk about low carb diets all the time, and kind of depriving yourself of certain things can be difficult. And so what's better than kind of the deprivation diet is trying where I can never have this, is that kind of looking at, can I be satisfied with a very small amount? It's a big thing with deprivation diets is that, gee, I can never eat that, is that they tend to fail because eventually, if it's something that, gee, we love this, but we're going to probably be exposed to it and therefore eat it. And what you don't want to fall into that trap of, gee, no, I've eaten this, now I'm giving up on the whole thing. So I'm not a big fan of deprivation diets with the exception of certain trigger foods. So how do you beat this? So, well, you want to focus on really the balanced diet, healthy eating, healthy exercise habits, but then also getting used to having just a tiny bit, being satisfied with just a very small amount of this, as opposed to, I'm going to have the great big bowl, I've got to finish off the big carton of ice cream, finish off the cake, eat all the cookies. Just like, okay, I'm happy with one, and then moving on back to my normal routine. All right, the third one is kind of feeling that self-disgust or just kind of hating your body. And just about everybody goes through this at some point, although hopefully we'll be healthy enough to realize, okay, we're just, we're talking trash to ourselves, and that's never a good thing. But just kind of that self-disgust, hate my body, we're often focusing kind of on what's wrong with our body, as opposed to, it doesn't fit their body doesn't fit the societal ideals. And this is never a healthy mindset. So beat it by kind of realizing your body's only a portion of who you actually are. Okay, this isn't you're not defined by what the shape of your body or the appearance of your body. That isn't who you are. Who you are is kind of your overall everything that goes into this. And if this part of it really is significant for you, kind of hating your body, and you really should seek professional help. You just got to have that discussion about, okay, realize you are not who you're just the appearance of your body. That's only a small portion of who you really are. All right, next kind of trigger is carbohydrate sensitivity, glucose intolerance, sugar intolerance, that whole insulin resistance type of thing. This then triggers a little bit different because this is a true physiologic trigger, in that for people that are truly, carbohydrate sensitive, glucose intolerant, is that they really need to be very careful with what they're eating, because they're very prone to blood sugar swings. Blood sugar swings produce insulin swings. Both of these things result in significant hunger and cravings. And so this is a physiologic issue. Unfortunately, the way to beat is, well, you've got to avoid those simple things, especially the simple carbohydrates. What you want to do is kind of bump that protein up, cut that carbohydrate way down. It'll help smooth the blood sugar swings, which helps smooth the insulin swings, and helps break those hunger and cravings. Potentially appetite suppressants are very good with controlling cravings as well. All right, another trigger, habits. This is what I've always done. Okay, this is more of kind of, gee, I go to the baseball game, I've got to get hot dog, beer, and popcorn. Okay, Cracker Jack, who knows? Or, gee, I go to the movie, I've got to have that, or sit down even in my home, I've had to have that food with me. It's kind of what goes together. It's what I've always done. It's your best friend, you always meet out and you eat this. And now, this is what I've always done. It's time to change those habits. Beat it by turn off the TV, engage your mind, hands in new activity. Try to get in that habit of, gee, if I'm watching TV, I'm watching TV. Not that I need to eat as well. Eating is eating. Separate the two things, and subsequently then, when I'm being entertained, I don't necessarily need to eat as well. Another trigger is just depression. Really common. Everybody gets intermittently depressed about something, or just feeling not only depressed, but I just have that lack of energy. And that food is often used as a pick-me-up. It's a pick-me-up, and gee, I need a little bit of something. Middle of the afternoon, I need a little bit of something, pick me up, maybe a cup of coffee and whatever it is, the crackers or whatever. So you beat it by identifying those low energy times. Gee, this tends to happen, because typically it's a recurring theme. This tends to happen in these situations, whether it be middle of the afternoon, whatever, and change that by changing the routine. So identify those low energy times and subsequently then do something different. Get up, move it around, take a short, brisk walk. If it is true depression, don't ignore it though. Because seek, again, professional help. See your PCPs. There are lots of good treatments for depression nowadays. And sometimes that's all it's needed. Sometimes sitting down with a counselor, going through the reasoning and rationale of why this is occurring can also be helpful, but occasionally needs to be treated, meaning some type of prescription medication can subsequently be helpful there. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right, another trigger, needing comfort. We talk about comfort foods. Okay, so needing that comfort, and often this is, goes back to our childhood, goes back to, kind of things we did when we needed that comfort from when we had a bad day, whether it be pressures from work, pressures from home, that just overall feeling of no one's appreciating what I'm doing, appreciating all the work that I've done. Everyone tends to have their own favorite comfort foods. Typically, they're tend to be sugary, starchy, crunchy, those type of things, but also kind of that sometimes the starchy, like the mac and cheese, the baked potato. People tend to gravitate to those things. Everybody tends to have their own kind of comfort foods, though. How do you beat this? Well, part of it is just take time for yourself. Okay, just if you need the comfort, you need also time to take care of yourself. Go get a massage, manicure, pedicure, whatever, kind of whatever you enjoy. Make sure you schedule that me time. It's very important for all of us, to have that me time, taking care of yourself. Another common trigger is just feeling overwhelmed. Okay, whether it be life, whether it be social responsibilities, family responsibilities, work responsibilities, we just tend to get overwhelmed. There are just too many things going on. We have literally so much to do that literally we can't get started. We don't know where do we start with all this. There are just so many things to get done. The biggest thing with that is just accepting that you can only do so much. There are only so many things we can do throughout a day, any one week, any 1 month. Taking on too much is never a good thing. But having said that, the best way to get projects done is making that first step. Because once you make that, it may be something as simple as saying, okay, I'm going to work on this for 10 minutes. I'm going to take 10 minutes. I'm going to start on this project. That first step. Whether it be organization with us. But you'll find most often that if we make that first step, the first few minutes, that the second and third steps are always a lot easier. All right, other triggers, emotional. We mentioned this one, kind of that stress, emotions, and it could be any emotion. It doesn't have to be bad emotions like I'm upset, I'm anxious, but it can also be happy. I'm thrilled, I'm overexcited. But it can be the sad, stress. Those things are often all there. All of these emotions, extreme emotions, can lead to overeating. Right? Again, kind of change the activity. Go outside for that quick walk. Remove yourself from the situation, with kind of, the situation that you're in. Physically remove yourself. Go for that walk. Deep breathe, stretch, kind of doing, repeating your mantra, yoga, and any of these things. Anything that kind of changes that situation a little bit. Another common one is that feeling of lack of willpower. Many people, not just some, but many people often say, well, I have no willpower. Well, everyone has willpower. It's just that you need to strengthen that willpower. And willpower is like a muscle. You can strengthen it, but you have to practice. Practice willpower. You need to use it. And even if you end up failing, okay, but if you can go a longer period of time, it's going to slowly improve. If anything that you practice, you will get better at it. Okay, you may, some people are just good at it. Other people, they have to practice it. But anything you practice will get better. May not be great, but will get better. So exercise your willpower. It will get stronger. And don't be, well, I'm going to fail anyway, so I might as well fail now. It's like, no, practice it. Even if you do end up failing, so what? Okay, next time we'll do better. Keep practicing it. It does get easier. Willpower does get stronger. All right, so what's some tips then, some overall tips on that? Talked about kind of 10 different things that tend to increase our eating. Couple things to just ask yourself when if you realize, hey, I'm falling into a trap of I'm going to be overeating. So tips to kind of avoid that overeating. A good thing to do is ask yourself a couple of questions. Why am I eating? That's number one. And number two, then, am I still hungry? or if I'm satisfied, because we'll sometimes overeat. That's not that unusual. But am I still hungry? Okay. Why am I eating? Now, it may just be that hey, it's time to eat. This is my eating time. And I encourage people to have eating times. That's a kind of that meal timing aspect that I talk about all the time. So ask yourself, why am I eating? And secondly, if you're in the middle of a meal, am I still hungry? And literally, you could ask yourself that almost for every bite. Okay. So avoid you want to try to avoid the overeating foods. And typically the overeating foods they're simple carbohydrates. They're the starches, there's the sugar, they're the crunchy, there's the salty. They're typically carbohydrates. If you do need to have more, okay, then have a protein. A good thing to do is like, okay, I've eaten my plan to eat, but my mind is kind of telling me, hey, I need more. Sometimes just delaying that 10, 15 minutes, and it's like some of those nerves that travel from your belly up to your brain travel very slowly. Subsequently, just waiting a little bit of time, you may realize, no, I don't really need that. Okay. Another thing I do encourage people to do is have some what I refer to as eating rules. Eating rules in a kind of, gee, I only eat in this situation. Or one of my favorite eating rules that has nothing to do with actual timing is that I only eat seated at a table. I only eat using actual utensils and using an actual plate or bowl or whatever it is. So I use utensils there. So instead of, gee, I grab something and eating it in the pantry, standing in front of the refrigerator, standing over the sink, any of those things, okay, I've made the decision to eat, whether it's a good one or a bad one. I made the decision to eat. I'm going to sit at the table to eat it. I'm actually going to use utensils. And even if this is finger food, use utensils, use a plate. And if you can make yourself do that, it's those extra couple of steps that often are going to help prevent you from overeating and prevent you. So, gee, if you have to make these up, if you can follow these rules, eat at a table, only use utensils, always use a plate. If you can do that, it'll help, because it's more work to do that. But if you can do that, it's going to help tremendously. And finally, again, I encourage people to have those meal timing. It's eating time, not eating. There isn't necessarily a right and a wrong eating time, but just have that, this is my eating time. If it isn't your eating time, don't eat. Sometimes that decision to eat or not to eat, that's a yes, no decision. And there's no in between. You're either eating or you're not eating, right? So kind of have that meal time. If it's time to eat, now I'm eating. Hopefully I'm going to have a healthy meal. Meal time is extremely important. You certainly don't want to fall into that, gee, I'm eating a little bit all throughout the day. It almost always leads to overeating in the big picture of what you're eating. Meal timing, some food rules. Again, eating time, I'm eating. Not eating time, I'm not eating, and I encourage you to push the water during those times. All right, winding it down. Another thing to do is avoid that family style eating. Family style means that, hey, we put everything on the table and we pass it around. Okay, because there's always that sensation of, gee, I need to finish what's there. And if you have, gee, a bunch of kids at the table, they're not eating everything there. You're going to have leftovers. The better thing to do is have the food in the kitchen or away from the actual dining area. Fill your plate in the kitchen, go and sit at your table. Okay? If you can do that, it takes more work to get more food. You have to physically get up. You have to make the decision, I'm going to get more food, as opposed to somebody just passing you food. It's looking at you and right in your face, and all you do is spoon it out onto your plate. So if you have to actually physically get up, go to the kitchen, get to refill the plate, there's steps there that is often easier to not continue eating them. And I don't know if you probably don't, but I would encourage you to go back and review that propinquity discussion. On one of these webinars, I talked about propinquity, which is just the closeness of how could be physically close, could be emotionally close, but propinquity is just a fun word to say. But during that, you mentioned that, gee, using small plates, small utensils, we eat less. And that's been shown, multiple studies that show that if we actually use smaller plates, smaller utensils, we eat less. Large plate, large utensils, we eat more. Now, initially, when you're getting into any diet plan, I'm really changing what I'm eating, I would encourage you, measure your portions. Because even the pros, dietitians, waitresses, they are likely very off, and at least 30% when we're eyeballing it. And that's, even the professionals are off a good 30% when eyeballing about how much is actually there. So initially measure your portions. Get used to doing that. You'll know exactly, okay, this is how much I'm actually eating. Slow down. Eat slowly. If we choose slowly, set your utensils down, have the social aspect of the eating there. If we go slow, we tend to also eat less. Eating very quickly, we eat more. And then finally, once you've kind of finished what is the appropriate amount, wait 10 to 15 minutes before getting more. Now, it may be, gee, I need more. And always, again, ask yourself, why? Why do I need more? Is it that I'm still truly hungry? Or is it just why? Because, hey, it tasted good and I want more. But if you wait 10 to 15 minutes, often those nerves catch up. It's like, hey, signaled up to your brain, hey, you're good. You don't need more. For cravings, which are very, very common, cravings and hungers do two different things, but they're obviously very closely related. For cravings, sometimes just distracting yourself, delaying these, cravings will fade away. Just like hunger doesn't keep getting worse. It's like, no, hunger comes in waves. Same thing with cravings. Cravings come in waves. Okay? So distractions, delaying that, often you'll change, I don't need it. Okay? Change your activity. Another good thing to fight off cravings. Change your activity. What am I doing? If I just do something a little different, you'll often be, you'll change that mindset. And subsequently, then I don't need to give in to those cravings. And then finally, a mineral that potentially can help with cravings is chromium. Because a lot of cravings come from blood sugar swings. Chromium is a mineral, just like calcium, magnesium, potassium, they're all minerals. Okay? So chromium's a mineral, and subsequently but it does help to smooth over blood sugar swings. If you smooth over blood sugar swings, subsequently cravings are easier to control. And then finally, practice. As I mentioned earlier, anything we practice, we get better at. And one thing to practice is maybe just leaving a little bit of food on your plate. And this is good for a couple of reasons. One, it teaches us we don't need to be a part of the Clean Plate Club, but also that typically if we have food on our plate, there's still a little bit left on there. People aren't asking you, do you want more? Do you want more? Or here, have some more. If they see the clean plate, they're more apt to ask you, hey, have some more. If you leave a little, if you make it a habit to leave a little bit of food on your plate, typically that doesn't occur so much. Practice these things. And finally, yes, I kind of mentioned that chromium can help, but also a couple other things. Carb blockers, hey, I know I'm going to stray with this meal, I'm going to grandma's house, or that I know I'm going to stray. Sometimes using a carbohydrate blocker, if you know you're going to stray, carbohydrate blocker, you'll block some of the absorption of the carbohydrate itself, acts more like a fiber. Okay? And then finally, I mentioned earlier, I just alluded to this, is appetite suppressants. Phentermine, which has been around for over 60 years, is one of the best medications actually to help with cravings. And subsequently, people don't care as much about eating when they have appetite suppressants. I guess in summary, then, finally, again, I said this just a minute ago, you don't have to be a member of the Clean Plate Club. And literally cleaning your plate does not help any starving children. I'm showing my age here because that's what we were told when we were growing up. Be a member of the Clean Plate Club, that she will help the starving children in the world. But it doesn't. The bottom line is that it doesn't help the starving children in the world there. All right. Any questions? I don't see questions sitting out there. If you think of questions, though, just don't hesitate. Pick up the phone, send an email, send a text, stop by, get your body comp checked. Yeah, stop in, get your body comp checked, log into the membership portal, should be receiving the health tips and weekly recipes. Tune in each Tuesdays, 12:15 for the next webinar. Watch your email for the invite and link. And remember, it's your life. Make it a healthy one. Have a good day, everyone. Take care.